Hello, class. I hope you're having a great week this week. We are actually going to cover informational interviews. This can be a very powerful tool for you, which is why I'm going to go over it with you. This can really open doors for you that otherwise may be closed. As a part of this class, you're actually going to do one. That is going to be an assignment. It's not going to be due for a couple weeks. We're going to scale it so that's in a couple different parts so that it's not all or nothing in terms of the grading. Why am I making you do this? Is it because I'm an evil, sadistic monster who just enjoys seeing you suffer? Not going to lie, that's a large part of it, but more importantly, this is really a great resource for you to have, and it is a great way to get a head start in building your career and finding out what you don't know that you don't know about your career. I'll never forget, I did an information interview in the late 90s, because I'm old, and I had just started a graduate program. And one of our first assignments was that we had to go out and do an informational interview. And when I did that, I soon realized that the program I was looking to go into wasn't for me. And had I not had that informational interview, I probably would have continued on. And one of the things I learned from the person I was interviewing was that the program I was in would not lead to licensure and would not lead to being able to do third-party billing and would really put some limitations for me in my career. It would detract from the value that I might have had I gone into a different degree program. So I'm a firm believer in the power of informational interviewing, in addition to being I think we've well established by this point that I'm a horrible monster. So there you have it. So ultimately, if we want to blame someone, it's probably this fella. You may be wondering who he is. I've got a quick list here of possible identities for him, right? He's actually none of those. He's actually the person who coined the term informational interviewing. And it was actually not that much earlier than when I did that informational interviewing. I believe What Color Is Your Parachute probably came out early 90s, mid 90s. And I'm going to be honest with you, I have always felt that the book is absolute trash. It is a manual on building your career, but I can't stand it. I think it is dangerously close to pop psychology and up with people nonsense that you can sneeze a rainbow to your desired career. And I don't think that it equips you with a lot of tangible equipment to be able to build a career. I think it's just a lot of wishful thinking. The one exception to that is this concept of informational interviewing, which was a powerful one. So I think it's been said that even a blind squirrel finds a nut, or a broken clock is right twice a day. So I think that's what we have here. In case you were wondering who actually produced Olivia Rodrigo's amazing albums, I'm a huge fan of hers. It was this gentleman over here. I'll be honest, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. If you were wondering about the bread, you should definitely check him out. He is a sensation in Germany. He was on a children's show on a children's network, which I believe is called Kika. And there's actually a tour coming through right now. And they didn't used to broadcast programming in the evening. And so overnights, they would just have one of those test patterns frozen on screen until they started broadcasting again the next day. And then they got total control over the channel. I don't know all the politics and the details. It was probably written in German. I don't read German. And despite 4 years of it in high school, they started showing shorts of this guy suffering through having to be the host of their nighttime programming, oftentimes asking viewers why the heck they were watching, if they didn't have something better to do, and if they would please just turn to a different channel or just turn the show off so he could be left alone. And apparently people coming back from the bars and nightclubs and kind of feeling the effects would watch him on screen. And so you can see him. I've included some clips for you here. Feel free when I post the PowerPoint to check them out. One, he's the reluctant host of the Kika Lounge. Kika is the channel, and they want him to be the chill coach. And there's very little that's chill about this guy. And in one series, they actually made him go off into space, which he was excited about because he really hates the world and wanted to escape it. And so he became the first ever Astrobrot, because he's a loaf of bread, and German word for bread is Brot. And so they sent him off into space. Why is he chronically depressed? Because he had really hoped to be the spokesperson for a bread company, and he got passed over and had to settle for a career in television. And also he fell in love with a slim baguette who only had eyes for a multi-grain loaf. So there you have it. The lead singer of Weezer is actually Rivers Cuomo. And the Secretary of Education, who was just confirmed, is actually former World Wrestling Entertainment CEO Linda McMahon, who has actually been pile drived before on live television. So I'm a little bit worried about having to participate in Department of Education SummerSlam this year, but we'll see how that goes. I have a pretty mean dropkick, and I do know the Iron Claw, so we'll see how that works for me. And according to X's Grok AI assistant, if I were to have hair, it would probably look like this. And I actually shared this on Facebook, and some friends of mine in college who remember when I did have long hair said it looked more like Bon Jovi's. It was brown and more curly, but what are you going to do? All right, so he is famous for this quote. One of the saddest lines in the world is, "Oh, come now, be realistic. The best parts of the world were fashioned not by those who were realistic. They were fashioned by those who dared to look hard at their wishes and gave them horses to ride." So like I said, I'll let it pop. Wishful thinking. I think you really need to be a lot more concrete and intentional about your career and the direction you go in. And I think you've got to be a bit more pragmatic than that, than hoping to just manifest it into being. But with that said, I'm providing you with actual footage from the first informational interview I ever did. And as you can see, it really did not go that well. I actually did one before my grad program, and I did not follow the steps, and I did not stay true to the intentions of an informational interview. So why they matter? They actually help you to identify the right people who can help you. They help you to master your pitch, and gives you a safe place to ask some passive questions to expand your knowledge on what you don't know about a particular career. You want to ask for referrals like a cheesy sales guy? Who else do you think I should talk to? Who else might it be beneficial for me to reach out to? Now, what is informational interviewing? It is actually talking to people about their job and asking them for advice. So you may be wondering, why would anyone want to do that? It's actually super flattering. And let's be honest, most people have super low self-esteem, and you will be pumping them up by citing them as a professional and expert in their field and wanting to get their opinion. It also ties into something called the Ben Franklin effect, which postulates that allowing someone to do you a favor is an incredibly powerful way to gain their loyalty. Ben Franklin once said, "He that has once done you a kindness will be more ready to do you another than he whom you have yourself obliged." Clearly, I struggle reading the words on the screen. There's actually some science behind it. It's something they actually call cognitive dissonance, that people reason that they help others because they like them unconsciously, even if they do not, because their minds struggle to maintain the logical inconsistency between their actions and their perceptions of those actions. If I'm doing something for you, I must like you. It has nothing to do with electrocuting them. Just want to be clear. But you may be able to get away with it as a research project for the Experiential Learning Showcase. So definitely reach out to the Office of Experiential Learning, because science, you can get away with a lot of things. Dale Carnegie once argued in his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, that you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get others interested in you. And so if someone reaches out to me and says, Mr. Marshall, I'm really interested in this field. Could I buy you a cup of coffee and do an informational interview and pick your successful and learned brain? They had me at, can I buy you a cup of coffee? The answer is yes. You can always buy me a cup of coffee. I'll take a venti black. If it's hot out, I'll have it iced. If it's cold out, I'll have it hot, but black. You put anything into the coffee, then you don't have a coffee of either a milkshake or soup. You don't have coffee. I like it unadulterated. If if I'm tired, I might go for a shot of espresso in the coffee. I'm just putting that out there. Here's where I made my critical fundamental error in my first informational interview. It is not a job interview, right? You're not asking for a job. And so at the end of it, you don't turn around and say, so when do I start? Informational interviews, there's no expectation of the job. The focus is on gaining knowledge. The interview may be with somebody without any actual hiring power, and you are actually the interviewer. Versus a job interview where the main focus is promoting yourself as a candidate for a particular position, and you are in the role of interviewee. You are the one answering the questions. So that is the fundamental difference. You'll get to do both as a part of this class. Yay! We just did a demo with someone for a new software for the college, and she must have said yay 20 times. No lie, no exaggeration in the demo. And it was actually kind of charming by the end of the demo. Yay! That would, instead of saying or and or pausing, she would just go yay and go on to the next thing. So I'm just pumping you up today for this workshop. So what you don't do is slip in, hey there, how about an internship, right? That's because immediately they're going to come up with a lot of reasons why they're not going to be comfortable with it. You're putting them on the spot. Similarly, we're not going to be like, hey, how about that job? When can I start? Right? That would be, so you can still get there. You just want to take a less direct path. And instead, ask for their assistance. Ask for their opinion. Ask for their insight. Do you have any advice on where I might find an internship? Now, they may turn around and end up realizing, oh, you know what? We actually have a great internship program here. Let me think. That's Doug over in Whatchamud office. I'll email him. I'll give him your name and contact information. I'll have him reach out to you. Or they might say, if you're interested in getting this field, we do have entry-level positions here. Let me send you some job descriptions and see if any of these appeal to you. That's great if that happens organically, but that's not the goal. And we're not going to try to manufacture that or to make that come about under a false flag, false pretense, right? If it happens organically and they just happen coincidentally to have an opening where they're looking for someone new who doesn't need a lot of experience, great. Let's mine that. Let's double down on that. But let's not go looking for it. Let's not try to make a sale here, because that's not what we're doing. Because then what you're doing is the bait and switch. That's like when you offer to buy me a cup of coffee and instead there's no coffee. That's not cool. Someone did that to me one time. They actually went to this workshop, heard me talk about informational interviewing and how, you could invite someone for a cup of coffee, and then they showed up in my office with no coffee. Not cool. Not cool. Was not happy. And I literally, at the time, my office was like 20 feet from the on-campus Starbucks. And so like, what are we doing? Go get me a, venti black iced. It was warm out. Anyway, and don't bring tea, right? That's not cool. Yeah, we want to do coffee. Right? We're not talking instant, right? We're not roughing it out in the wild. Like, bring a really good cup of coffee. Anyway, the bait and switch, that's when I promise you a really great price on one product, you show up and I don't have that product, and I offer you to sell something more expensive or of a different quality. And so if you go into an informational interview under the pretense that it's an informational interview, and then you ask for a job or an internship at the end of it, then you've you've done this. You've committed the bait and switch. And that's not cool. And that's not fair. And it's insincere. It's not respectful to the person who is granting you that time. And to be honest with you, it can be really awkward because they may have absolutely nothing to do with hiring, and you may know that walking into it. And so you gotta be mindful of that. We're also looking to play the long game. And networking is not something that typically breeds instantaneous results. It's like marketing. It's like that commercial for a product that you see during the Super Bowl, or maybe for 2 minutes when you're trying to watch a Hulu or Amazon Prime show, or just watching. I don't know if anyone watches regular television anymore. You're probably not going to go out and buy a product right at that minute. Unless it's one of those where they say, if you call in the next 20 minutes, we'll give you a second one free. But it's introducing the product, it's making you aware of their brand, and so that when your dishwasher does break down, Maytag happens to be in your consciousness. You're aware of it, you've seen their commercials, you know their reputation. So, okay, I'll go get a Maytag washing machine. And so it's about building a network, finding people who can be allies for you and who can assist you in this process. And informational interviewing is a great way to set about adding to your network. Now, why would you ever want to do one of these? Well, I just told you. It's a chance to find out the less appealing parts of the job before getting stuck. I once had I did. One of my counselors once had a physical therapy, a DPT student, a doctorate of physical therapy student, who was set to graduate in about a month. And they'd gone through 3 or 4 years as an undergrad at our school. And then they did, I think it was 2 more years of graduate study to get the DPT, the doctorate in physical therapy, because it was an accelerated program. And so had gone through all this rigorous academic work. And in her last semester, had to go out on the clinicals and do the actual hands-on experience. Got out there, came to realize she couldn't stand touching other people. Well, physical therapists are touching people all day long. Oh, let me adjust it and see if this relieves the pressure on that nerve. Oh, let me show you, you got to do it like this so that you don't injure your shoulder. All day long. And suddenly realized that touching other people was anathema to her. She just couldn't tolerate it. Now, think about that. 5 years, probably $50,000 to $60,000 a year. Do the math on that. And now she was going to have this doctorate in physical therapy and a career that she wasn't going to be able to stand and would dread getting up in the morning every day and going out to it. Now, if she'd talked to more physical therapists, maybe she would have realized what an average day would be like for them. And that's actually a great question to ask. Tell me about an average day for you. What is that like? What does that look like? And so it becomes a chance to make sure that this is a really good fit for you. And it continues to be a great way to build your network. It also gives you interviewing practice. It gives you practice in that type of a setting. It allows you to conduct some background research, get some ideas, and you can also reverse engineering, which is something that you would have done during that LinkedIn experiment, which is you're seeing somebody, you're doing what Stephen Covey would say is beginning with the end in mind. You're finding somebody who actually has the position you want, and now you're reverse engineering how they got there. It's kind of like if I buy the Apple iPhone when it first came out, I tear it apart and I figure out how it works, and then I come out with my own version of the phone, and they sue me for trademark infringement and copyright and patent infringement and all that good stuff. So you can legally do that with someone's career by seeing the steps they take and by an informational interview, because you're going to do your research on them ahead of time to see what their career consisted of, usually making use of LinkedIn to see, because there's your evidence, right? You can see, oh, they did all these steps. But when you meet with them and you discuss it with them, you may find out that yes, they did take this position as an assistant director of such and such over here, but that ended up being a mistake. Then it ended up being a detour that actually set them back in their career and didn't help them get closer to the prize. And so you can learn from their mistakes to be able to maybe find a more direct route to success. And they may say, you know what? Everyone tells you to go off and do this. Don't think about that. Really focus here in getting a type of job like this, because that is going to be the key piece that opens up this job market for you, because everyone's looking for X, Y, and Z, and you will get that in that position. Make sense? It also gets you moving, and that's really important. 90% of career development is doing anything, doing something, breaking the inertia, finding some momentum. When people are looking for jobs, I always tell them, your job when you're out of work is to find a job. You have to treat it just like you would a job. Set a goal. I'm going to submit 10 resumes and cover letters, and thus applying for 10 jobs a day. I'm going to track it. And I'm going to keep a file on each one that I apply to, so that when they call me in for an interview, I can go back and reflect on the job description and which job I actually applied for with that company. And you want to treat it just like a job. And so informational interviewing gets you out of your head. It gets you out of the and gets you into the doing. And it can give you some hard, real data on what the job is actually going to be like. And it's really like any other interview. All the rules apply, except you're in the driver's seat. You're asking the questions. So you want to be organized. You want to plan it out. Do the background research on that particular person. Identify what you want to get out of an informational interview, and it's not an offer for a job or an interview. You want to be organized so that you're not wasting their time, and you want to make sure that that you follow up in your play. And you want to avoid being overly casual, like I was when I thought I could pull off Under Armour in my well, maybe we don't have to go into how old I was when this picture was taken, but yeah, you don't want to be too casual. And you want to make sure to listen intently, be polite and attentive, because that's how you build a relationship that may yield dividends in the future. Don't be dismissive, don't interrupt, let them talk and listen intently. Now, if they tell you, now for my upcoming sample informational interview, person said, hey, I only have half an hour. And I said, that is not a problem. I am thrilled that you're willing to give me even half an hour. And so you want to hold to that because you agreed to that, but it's also your job to mind the clock. And so if they're enjoying the interview and they're getting caught up in it, and you realize that you could just keep the interview going beyond its allotted time, don't do that, because you made a commitment. You made a promise that you would only take so much time. They may have somewhere they actually genuinely need to be, or something that needs to get done. So you got to be the timekeeper. You got to keep an eye on the clock. And as you're getting towards the end, be like, okay, I'm having the greatest time. I'm learning so much. This has been invaluable to me. I want to be respectful of the fact that you said you only had 20 minutes. Do you need to wrap up, or can we go on? I've been on some sales demos calls where the salesperson's actually done that. Say, do you have a hard stop at 30 minutes? I know we set it for 30, but if you have time, would be more than willing to go on and show you some of the other features. And depending on my mood and what I have going on, sometimes I entertain it. Sometimes I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I really do have that hard stop. And yes, that is at least 2 wrestling presets. I don't know what's going on with me. I must really be upset about the John Cena heel turn. Anyway, research ahead of time the career and the person you're interviewing so that you're asking substantive questions. Don't be asking questions that you should already know the answer to. This is also your chance to impress them. And ask really smart questions. Don't be like Barbara Walters, who was a celebrity interviewer back in the day. And she used to ask really, quite frankly, asinine questions. Like, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? She actually asked that on network television. And I forget who she asked it to, but what an asinine question. She wasted her time. She wasted their time. It, I'm an oak. I mean, how are you supposed to answer that? I mean, for you, you could say, I'm an elm. Great. But that's the exception that proves the rule. Ask a really good question. Ask questions you actually care to know the answer to. Don't get all abstract and esoteric. Again, you're going to send a thank you note or a thank you email. I prefer a thank you card because then you're handwriting it and it shows you took the time and you really valued their time and you're respecting it and you're honoring it by taking the time to actually fill out the thank you card. You have to actually handwrite it. If you're like me and your handwriting is bizarre and horribly illegible, you've really got to concentrate. And then you actually have to go and find a stamp and find a post office box to drop it into. So it shows that you took the time, and that only helps reinforce and deepen that connection, hopefully and not to be Machiavellian about it, but for potentially a relationship that's going to yield in the future. So we're going to actually break the informational interview into 3 distinct parts. You're going to start with small talk, questions and answers, and then next steps. So remember that. You're going to use the Tierra framework, and I am glad that she's rebounding nicely from her health scare. That, of course, is the wife of the Prince of Wales, Kate Middleton, who had a cancer scare. Because obviously I just can't avoid any excuse for a pun. So Tierra is an acronym for Trends, Insights, Advice, Resources, and Assignments. And to maximize the value of your informational interview, you should construct it to address those 5 areas. So trends. What is new in the field? Where is the field meandering towards? Where do you see this going? You may find out that the field's in trouble, that maybe AI or technology is really throwing a wrench into things or making those positions more in short supply. You may find out. So for example, if you were going to interview a retail manager, they would probably tell you today, don't go into retail. We don't know if it's even going to exist in 10 years, right? Amazon, online, it's taking over. Peapod, that service that you can do where they'll shop for you and then deliver it to you. I used to work with someone who would go out on their lunch break and they would do that. They would do the I forget what it's called, not Uber Eats, but they would do the other one, and they would go to the store, have an order, fill it for the person, deliver it, and go back to work. Whenever I go grocery shopping, I get really aggravated because usually who's in my way but a store employee who's shopping for somebody else and they're either doing the grab and go pickup or they're actually having their order delivered. And so, retail's going to look really different. It's probably going to downsize. Conversely, Amazon fulfillment centers are probably going to continue to expand. We say that today. You never really know for sure. It's really hard to forecast the future. And so, if you went back to 2000 when AOL was merging with Time Warner and a variety of other corporate assets, we really thought they were going to be the dominant player. And none of those properties are really all that valuable anymore. And so, who knew? So what trends are most impacting your business field right now? How has your business or field changed most since you started? How do you think your business or field will change most dramatically in the next several years? Those are great sample questions. Feel free to develop your own. Then we're going to look at insights. What can they share with you about the real vocation? What surprises you most about your job, your field, your employer? Great question. What's the best lesson you've learned on the job? What's been your most valuable experience at your employer so far and why? If you had to attribute your success to one skill or trait, what would it be? What trait shared by many across the organization? Okay, is that trait shared by many across the organization, or is it unique and you've adapted it to your advantage? Those are great open-ended questions because it gets them talking. And that's really important in this because we want to avoid yes/no questions because the conversation's not going to go anywhere if you're just asking yes/no questions or questions that are a simple one-word answer. Red, 14. And they're not going to get as engaged and involved. And you really want their engagement and involvement. Again, we're building a relationship. We're proving ourselves as somebody who. So here's one of the things. The best conversationalists are the ones who ask questions and listen. You go to a dinner party and you spend most of the time asking somebody questions about themselves and what they think about things. You may have just asked the questions. At the end of the night, they're going to turn to someone and say, I really enjoyed talking to him. He's a great conversationalist because you made it about them. And the most important lesson in career development is always make it about them. Free advice. What can I be doing now to prepare myself for a career in this field? There are a lot of times someone will say, I wish I had known when I was an undergraduate, X, Y, and Z. Wouldn't it be great if you could find that out now? Or if I got hired, what should I be sure to do within the first 30 days to ensure I get off to the fastest start possible? That's a great question. When you're sitting around at your desk and you don't have any assignments yet, and the person who's supposed to train you is out sick today, and you're really not sure what to do or even how to dial an outside line, wouldn't it be great if you already knew some things you could be actively working on? Maybe it's make sure to reach out to all the people who work at that company, find out what they do, what their jobs are. That sounds a lot like an informational interview, doesn't it? What do you know now that you wished you'd known when you were in my position? It always takes me back to a Bob Seger song, not to date myself too much to the Mesozoic age, but there's a famous line in one of his songs, wish I didn't know now what I didn't know then. And I always think about that a lot. In this case, we want to know what we don't know now so that we're not bemoaning that later. If you were me, what would you be doing right now to maximize your chance of breaking into this industry, field, or function? Career resources. That's the R is for resources. So what should I be looking into next, resource-wise? What next steps would you recommend for somebody at this stage of my career? Who else should I be reaching out to? That's powerful. That's powerful because if nothing warms up a cold call more than being able to say, oh, I talked to Ben Jones over at XYZ Corporation, and he just talked so much about you, and he said that you are really the person I need to talk to. Again, we're pumping up weak egos like mine and offering coffee. That's a winning combination any day of the week. Assignments. Now we're getting to the A. What projects have you done that you felt added the most value? Have any projects increased in popularity recently at your organization? Have you had interns or new graduates in the past? And if so, what projects have they done? Again, not asking for the internship, but this actually may get them thinking, if you're impressing them in your informational interview, it would actually be pretty cool if we had an intern working on this project for us here and now. But again, don't expect, suggest. I stole that from a U2 song. They stole it from somewhere else. U2 is an Irish rock band that you've probably never heard of. So anyway, Tiara, by utilizing Tiara, you're building rapport with your contact, but also eliciting usable information. You begin the conversation by treating your contact as an expert. Over the course of the informational interview, your questions will shift in tone and depth. So you frame your contact more personally as a mentor or as a coach, maximizing the chance that you'll turn them into an advocate. It's like you're trying to make them a double agent, trying to get at the soft side so that you can turn them, trying to find that hook to bring them over to your side. And that is informational interviewing. That didn't sound so bad, right? We've got a pretty easy formula, Tierra. We've got our 3 phases of the informational interview. Yeah, hopefully you are going to itemize those when you give me the transcript of that. And if you do have questions or concerns, reach out to me. Also make sure, if you are on campus, to pencil in the date for the experiential showcase. That's pretty amazing, and I'll be working at that day. And again, I'll offer you extra credit if you attend it. Did I mention that before? Maybe that's new information. I'm not sure. And so reach out to me if you do have questions or concerns. Here's the thing, and this inevitably sometimes happens, I think I just contradicted myself. If it becomes clearly impossible, you just can't find somebody in your field to do an informational interview with, as a last resort, there is the nuclear option. You can do an informational interview with me. And I'll tell you all the glory about the work that I do. But I'm going to warn you up front, I'm a weird duck. And so that is going to be surreal and 4-dimensional, and who knows what's going to come into that. But I am your safety school, so to speak. I am your safety net. If you can't find anyone else, you can informationally interview me. I would much rather have you do it and have it be something that is perhaps far more valuable to you, so that it's really something that's going to provide a resource for you and that will also help you build your network. I mean, I would love for you to find a valuable asset in the person who you do the informational interview with, who you can keep in contact with, who you can keep informed of your progress throughout your time at Elms, so that when you're graduating, even when you're in the field, you got that person as a resource. You may come across something in the future and you'd be like, that's weird. And to have people outside of your organization who you can reach out to and say, hey, by the way, have you ever encountered this scenario? And if so, what do you think? Like, how'd you deal with that? What do you think? If they haven't, is this weird? It's really great to have a safe pool of people to bounce those kinds of things off of. I'm a part of the College Career Centers of Western Massachusetts, and so it's all the college career center directors for all the area colleges in the greater Springfield area. And so it's a neat resource for me to have, because I can call up, Scott at Springfield College and be like, this just happened. Is that weird? Has that ever happened to you? Or have you ever had to deal with that? And a lot of times, my peers are just invaluable, because they'll be like, let me tell you, look, this is what they're trying to do. And so here's how you get out of that. And it can be invaluable. It's also a safe place to vent, because you don't want to be angry so-and-so at your office, the disgruntled potato, right? So, all right, enough of that. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this has proved informative and beneficial, and maybe even instructive. Again, reach out if you have concerns, and I will look forward to seeing your assignments. One cautionary word, keep in mind that if you really mail it in on this and don't use Tierra and don't follow the order of functions of the interview, the next class who have to take this class will probably have to take a 20-question quiz on informational interviewing, because that's what you had to take, a 20-question quiz on resumes and cover letters, because it became very clear to me that no one had watched the video lecture, because the very resume templates I told them not to use, they sent me in. And so I figured they either didn't watch the video or they were just really being obnoxious. Either way, now you get a video lecture and a quiz. So there we have it. Thank you.